Hey, welcome to the Newport This Week video podcast series. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Remember, you can find every episode of this podcast at newportthisweek.com. And of course, over on the Newport This Week YouTube channel, which I recommend everybody subscribe to. There's a lot of great content up there, a lot of behind the scenes stuff, if you want to call it that, in terms of civic engagement. And today we're talking about, well, we're talking history. And Rebecca Bertrand joins us. I guess if you want to just sort of set the table, introduce yourself, and tell us about what's happening in terms of celebrating really an incredible history that most people probably have a sentiment of, but maybe don't know all the detail on.
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Well, I'm Becca Bertrand. I'm the executive director of the Newport Historical Society, and 2025 marks the 250th anniversary of the start of the American Revolution. And so we're kicking things off for this semi-quincentennial celebration, which will run through 2026 with some really exciting lectures, public programs, exhibitions, and it all gets started this month. Yesterday was May 4th, which, of course, you know, is Rhode Island Independence Day. So we have some really exciting lectures, which we now are calling Tavern Talks to get us in the mood. And so we're really excited this Friday to be welcoming Rick Atkinson in partnership with Charter Books. He's coming to Newport on as part of his nationwide tour, kicking off the second book in a trilogy of really, really incredible chronology on the American Revolution. This book is called The Fate of the Day, The War for America. It goes from Fort Ticonderoga to Charleston from 1778 to 1780. There's some limited tickets remaining for that lecture. So if you want to come, you should definitely grab those tickets today at newporthistory.org. The ticket price includes a copy of the book. It just came out 5 days ago, so not many people have their hands on that. And he'll be there to sign books and take questions from the audience. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner, so it's an amazing opportunity to be up close and personal with him. That lecture is going to be in the Colony House, so you'll be surrounded by the amazing history, colonial history, and get the chance to be up close and personal with an incredible author. So we're so excited about that. And you know, so much history in the American Revolution happened here in Newport. So we played an outsized role in the revolution. So this is a great opportunity to surround yourself with the history, learn about it, and maybe it's something you know a lot about, or maybe you don't know anything about it at all. So this is a great opportunity to learn.
I read from Atkinson's writing, quote, war had lacerated Newport. The population of more than 9,000 had dropped by two-thirds, and a peacetime affluence derived from rum as part of the triangle trade. That's my podcaster's note right there, which involves slave trade. Newport certainly has that deep, horrible history. I think it ought to be noted. Shipping, smuggling, and yes, slaving had vanished. Residents needed British permission to hunt and fish. Those who complained too much found themselves confined with captured privateers aboard Lord Sandwich. What was Lord Sandwich?
Oh gosh. I am not sure, Bill, that you came up with a trick question there.
Oh, sorry about that. All
Yeah,
right.
you can you got to come to the lecture and chat with Rick to know
Exactly.
more.
If you want to
Yeah.
know the details and the deep
Yeah.
history, but let's use that sentiment to build it. Look,
Yeah.
Newport was a major epicenter of the revolution. And quite frankly, I think that a lot of people understand that there's no doubt that the British occupied Newport. That's common knowledge for anybody who's got a modicum of sensibility about the island's history. But this was an extreme occupation. This was not just a minute, hey, we're going to take a couple of houses. This set the tone for much of the revolution as a whole. And it was really an exhibit in what happened in terms of you can make the argument that the British were the colonizers. You can make the argument that the Americans were the colonizers. It doesn't really matter. The British
Mhm.
occupation was mean spirited and very real.
hmm Yeah, and I think, you know, in a lot of ways, it really changed the city in ways that, well, then it was a town, in ways that changed the culture and landscape and business and economics of the community for generations. It took a long time for Newport to bounce back from the American Revolution, and we see the impacts of it into the 19th century. And so a really interesting way to explore that history is through our exhibition, which actually opens next week. So if you're not available on Friday to come to this lecture, we really invite everyone to take the opportunity to see our exhibition, Newport 1775, Whose Side Are You On? Because it wasn't an easy decision to decide to be a loyalist or a patriot. We think of it now like, oh, obviously we won the American Revolution, but it wasn't so obvious that we were going to win. It was really kind of just a miracle, and a lot of different things turned out to be fall into place for the Patriots to win the revolution. And so the exhibition, right when you come in, actually will force you to pick a side. So there'll be a barrier in the entranceway, and you'll choose patriot or loyalist, and actually take a tag that you'll carry with you, identifying which side you've selected. And then as you go through the exhibition, you'll meet 6 different individuals and learn about their personal stories through some interactive touchscreens. And the first object that you're going to encounter when you come in is the printing press, the Franklin Press, which is a 17th century printing press, which printed a number of different publications, notably the Newport Mercury, but also the press printed pamphlets and broadsides. And we talk a lot in the exhibition, which was curated by an amazing curator, Don Johnson, who's a scholar on the American Revolution, who actually wrote a book about occupied America. Which really forces you to think about the role that the media and the people who were influencing the media, the agents of the different printers at the time, were forcing you to make one decision or another. It won't sound so different than the world we're living in today, but it really does sort of force you, who was writing the news, who was responsible for what you were learning in your day-to-day life, and then how did that influence the choices you made in your daily decisions, what you were buying, what you were or were not drinking, the famous Boston Tea Party story, and who was deciding to or to not drink tea at the time. These are all decisions that individuals made. I think so often we think about the American Revolution as an ideal and as a thing, but it was really something that was lived out by individuals. And so this exhibition takes a look at who those people were. And there's one section of the exhibit that shows windows and doors, and it's really because it's about what was happening at one window and one house, and what was one neighbor doing that another neighbor wasn't doing, to kind of give that sentiment of you might not be doing what your neighbor is doing, which I think is a really interesting play on it.
I think that's a really important, I think, especially in the contemporary landscape that we live in, to look back upon. And I love this proposition of which side are you on? We could ask that very same question today. Loyalists and patriots, some people, depending on their political persuasion, might identify, they might say, hey, we're the patriots over here. You guys are, the radical left lunatics. You want to destroy America. And then on the other side, you can make the argument to say, hey, wait a minute, we're the patriots. You guys are making maneuvers that defy constitutional norms and due process. We're the patriots. So it's also it's a good exercise for people to look back on not all that long ago, where these are tough situations, and you can't necessarily blame members of society for
Right.
falling into one side or the other because of the pressures, whether it be media or other influential indicators. That helps sculpt public opinion, and people fall into camps. That's where we are right now. And boy,
Mhm.
looking back on Newport's role in the revolutionary times, what an exercise that is so contemporarily relevant.
Yep. Yeah. And the really interesting thing is we'll be exploring this over the next year and a half through different lectures, through exhibition openings. So if you're really interested in the occupation of Newport, there'll be a great lecture given by Don Johnson, the curator, on May 22nd. The exhibition opens on May 15th. The opening reception is open to the public. Just feel free to RSVP on our website, newporthistory.org. And there's a whole microsite that we've made about all of our 250 programming. We're really spotlighting Newport in Rhode Island's celebration of the 250th anniversary. So, keep in touch with the Historical Society, become a member, because it's a really great way to keep engaged with all of our historic sites. The Colony House is now open every day for tours, thanks to a grant that we received from Rhode Island Commerce. So it's a very exciting time for the Historical Society, and there's lots of different ways to learn the colonial story because the best American citizen we can be is knowing more about our past.
Couldn't agree more. It's the most patriotic thing that you can do, that's for sure, at least in that same category as a number of other things. Becca Bertrand, hey, this is great stuff. That micro site, that sort of um, uh, comprehensive collection of where people can get information about 250 celebrations. What's the address for that?
newporthistory.org/250.
Awesome. Hey, thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.